God bless you. God bless you on today, Brother Larry. Thank you so much for having me on today. And I want to make a point, wanted to make a point to come down to the studios. And so everybody could see that I was a real person in live and in color. And I wasn't going to be sitting behind a green screen. And so here I am. So I am Face2Face Ministries. Again, my name is Dr. Donnie Eatmon, and typically I speak to you all on Sunday mornings at 9 o'clock. I do a show, and then there's another show that I do on every Wednesday at 3 p.m. And so I'm going to supplement that, and I'm going to be down here today so I can go a little bit live because I'm trying to increase those that would like to follow me or don't know that I have a page to follow. I want you to start following me on that. And so I can be reached. It's in the description there at Face2Face Ministries. I believe that description is there. So you got a link there that you can get me on. And also there's another link for my YouTube page. And so that's really what I want. I want you to engage it, and I promise you that you will not be disappointed by coming over to my platform on YouTube and on Facebook. So today we're going to get into the Word of God, and I believe that He has something that will enlighten and give us some revelatory knowledge for our direction today. I want to bring your attention to the book of Second Kings. Second Kings, the 4th chapter, and beginning at verse number 1, it says, "Now there cried a certain woman of the wives of the sons of the prophets unto Elisha, saying, Thy servant my husband is dead. And thou knowest that thy servant did fear the Lord. And the creditor is come to take unto him my 2 sons to be bondmen. And Elisha said unto her, What shall I do for thee? Tell me, what hast thou in the house? And she said, Thine handmaiden have not anything in the house save a pot of oil. Underscore that. Save a pot of oil. Verse number 3, Then he said, Go borrow thee vessels abroad of all thy neighbors, even empty vessels. Borrow not a few. There's a reason for that. Verse number 4, And when thou art come in, thou shalt shut the door upon thee and upon thy sons, and shalt pour out into all those vessels, and thou shalt set aside that which is full. So she went from him and shut the door upon her and upon her sons, shut the door, who brought the vessels to her, and she poured out. Verse number 6, And it came to pass, when the vessels were full, that she said unto her son, Bring me yet a vessel. And he said unto her, There is not a vessel more. And the oil stayed. Verse 7, Then she came and told the man of God and said, Go sell the oil and pay thy debt, and live thou and thy children on the rest. And the word of the Lord is blessed. I want to talk today from a subject matter. Let's work with that. I want to talk from that subject. I am reading out of, or I have read to you out of the King James Bible. And so when we look at that, just to give you a little background narrative as it relates to let's work with that. And I know that people have sliced and diced this particular familiar passage of scripture 100 different ways. And I think I'm going to give you a presentation. I'm going to give you an introduction. I'll give you a snapshot of this presentation of it today. And then we will continue. I'll be back in the studios for the next couple weeks, and then we will try to wrap it up. But when we say let's work with that, what's behind the backdrop of that? It is the mindset. One of the concerns that I have today is how we feel about what's around us and how we feel about ourselves. And so when we look in the text, the woman says that when the man of God asked her, he says, "What is it that you have in the house?" And she says, I don't have anything. I have really but nothing. And so that right there becomes very problematic whenever you look at yourself and understand that the house really was not representative of a house that you live in. It was not really a shelter. And I just want you to think of it in a different way because I'm trying to get something to you. So when you look at that, the idea of the man of God asking her what was in her house, in other words, we can translate that to say, what do you have to offer? And what I found so often is that people really don't believe that they have gifts, that they have talents, that they have any value on the inside of them to offer. So when we look at the initial part of the text, the issue, the cry from the woman cried out to the man of God because she says, listen, she says, I'm in a strait. I'm in a very hard place. She says that, my husband has died and I need you to understand he was a good servant. And that's another thing that we have to understand. We really got to pause right there because a lot of times what we want to do is we want to come in and we want to place the blame. We want to say you are the reason. And when we look at that, when it says the servant, it says the prophet of God. So you say that now it becomes a church thing. So oftentimes the church is looking to make up the deficits in our lives. But see, the church is really not responsible for the deficit in your life. It's really the man that's responsible. So what the woman was actually, what needed to be identified here and what the crisis was when the woman says that, hey, I have an issue. Let's just read that again. She says, now there cried a certain woman of the wives of the sons of the prophets unto Elisha. So he was a man of God, supposedly, saying, thy servant, my husband, is dead, and thou knowest that my servant did fear the Lord. So he served. And the creditor is come to take unto him my 2 sons to be bondmen. Now, the issue here is that he was a servant of the Lord, but there was a way that he managed his house that really left her with nothing. And so what she was saying is that when the debtors come, the debtors have come because my husband, when he left and he died, he left us insufficient. That becomes the issue. He left us with not enough. And so since he left us with not enough, what I need now is I need for y'all to come through. I need the church to come through on my behalf. Why? Because you know that my husband, he served. And so since he served, what I need you to do now is to make up the difference. Why? Because he's gone, and the service that he gave, he was there on Sunday morning. He was there on Wednesday. Bible study. He was there. All the business. He did everything for the church. And now I am left with nothing. The issue here that we have, and what I want to communicate to you today, is that what we have to do is understand the practicalities of ministry. We have an imbalance. On one side, we can become very spiritual. And so we get so caught up in doing all the things, all the service in the church. So we spiritualize everything. When we spiritualize everything, what we forfeit or what we don't do really well is we don't manage the practical things of life. And so when we don't manage the practical things of life, what happens now is when we're removed, when life happens to us, what the woman was says is now I'm left at a deficit. My husband is gone and he didn't give to us. Not only it was she at a deficit, but her two sons was at a deficit. So what the man of God did not do, what he failed to do, was he failed to give a demonstration of what life after he leaves should look like, what it should feel like. And a lot of us have positioned ourselves in a quandary, if you will, to once we leave the practical pieces of life undone. And so we don't leave what is called legacy. And so now the woman is left to figure out, how do I do life? My husband is gone, only to understand that my husband was a bad businessman. My husband didn't manage real well. And so since he didn't, what's going to happen now is all the things that I value, the Bible says here, is that the creditors came after what she valued the most, which was her two sons. Now understand here, when we look at this whole thing, she's in a situation. Her husband is gone, and the creditors now are coming after her, and they're coming after what is valuable to her. And oftentimes, if we don't take care of business, then business will come back and it will take care of us. And so what I really want to engage you in today, and I know, again, like I preferenced at the beginning of this, is that a lot of people, they look at this and they focus on the oil and all this kind of stuff. I'm focusing on the practicalities of life as it relates to money. The reason why I do that is because I believe that the church has, and I hate to use the word fail. I hate to indict the church. But when we look at this particular text, it is a text that talks to the church, because you have a man of God that served in the church. Then you have his wife and you have his children. But too often, us as church, we speak in tongues really well. We prophesy well. We do all those spiritual things very well. But when it comes down to, can we send our children to school? When it comes down to, do we have a savings account? When it comes down to, do we have a checking account? All the things that we need in order to do life, we can't do those things properly. We can't do those things at an excellent level. And so here, even though he was the man of God, and a lot of us in the church, because we spiritualize so much and we walk holy and all this kind of stuff. And when everybody, they see us, there's Shakanada coming in a Honda and all that kind of stuff. And all that, it sounds real good until you go home. So I want to talk to the church at home, not the church that gets behind the mic, not the church that's in the pulpit, not the church that's singing all the glorious songs, not the church that's got their hands up and they praising and they worshiping all the hallelujahs and all that. What I want to know is, how is the practical side of your life? Because God is not just concerned about the spiritual piece. I know you're going to heaven. God knows that you're going to heaven, but the salvation walk becomes very paramount now. How do you walk this thing out? It's not even so critical that we go to heaven. Going to heaven is easy. All we got to do, according to Romans 10:9, is confess with our mouth, believe in our heart, and the Bible says that you shall be saved. So that's easy right there. After that becomes the journey. So now where I'm at is I'm saying, Lord, I really want to help us as a body. I work out of the fivefold ministry. So I got, my gift is in pastoring, my gift is in teaching, and I have a prophetic side to myself. And so I'm asking the Lord, what do you want me to say? What do you want me to do? And this is it. He said, Donnie, he says, my people are struggling. Even when you struggle, what you don't understand, when you struggle in the natural or the practical things, it spills over into the spiritual side. And so what was happening as a result of her looking that she could not pay her debtors, what she also lost was peace. And see, peace now becomes that spiritual peace, that spiritual component to our walk with the Lord. So now you setting up because you got worried, and you're not supposed to be worried. But the reason why you're worried is because you didn't have an example that was set before you that would pave the way, not just for you, but for you and your children. Now your children, now the two sons, and this is a critical juncture here, is because the children now are looking not only at the life of the father, but they're looking at the occupation of the father. Where did the father spend all his time? And by him spending all his time there, how was that working? Now, mom, look, daddy done spent all his time preaching and teaching, going to the hospital, serving, doing this, that, and the other. Now daddy gone. You mean to tell me daddy didn't have a nothing in the bank account? He didn't have a checking account? He didn't have a savings account? You mean daddy didn't have an insurance policy? You mean to tell me now all of us, we in trouble? We can't eat now. We can't figure out how to go forward. Well, son, I mean, there's an issue here. There's an issue. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about that issue. Now watch this. I only got a few more minutes, and I just wanted to set the stage today because I'm going to continue this. Now watch this. Elisha said unto her, he says, what shall I do for thee? And he says, tell me, what hast thou in the house? Now, where we are as a church and as a people, because oftentimes we have not been given the proper presentation. And so now, because we haven't been given that, we are at a deficit. There's a deficiency inside of us. And so we don't know how to think about the church. We don't know how to think about ourselves because the church has failed to do this. They have done a really good job in the spiritual side, but they didn't set up classes on finances, financial literacy, and all that type of stuff. So now I don't know. I don't feel real good about myself. I don't know what to share with my sons. We got a situation right now. So Elisha says, what is it that you have? And what I'm trying to get you to see is when you look at yourself, the issue is, and with all that church and no practicality to your existential being. I'm talking about the total you, the total package, because the package of you just ain't church. The package of you is how do you do life? Now you got to look on the inside of you and find value. Where we're running into issues at is when we look inside of us, when we look in the house and we say, well, what is it that you have inside of there? We don't know that there's a talent. And if there is a talent, we don't know how to mind it out. We don't know how to place value on it. We don't know how to look at it as to say, well, I got this, and this right here, it can bring me this. It equals that. You can't even put a price tag on that. So when we start now looking inside, it's like look inside of you to see what kind of oil did God give you? What kind of oil? When you look right now, some of us out there right now, we got complaints. And what the man of God is saying, I'm in the person of Elisha now. And I'm saying to you, all of you out there that you're looking and you're searching, I'm saying, what do you have in your house? What do you have to offer? What oil do you have? Maybe you have one talent. Maybe you have two talents. Maybe you have five. But whatever it is, you got to understand that it has value attached to it. And with that, God is saying that I have given you the wherewithal to mine that out, and you're going to be able to produce such a measure of wealth or whatever it is that you need, that in the end you're going to be able to not only pay the debtors, you're going to be able to change your life, and you're going to be able to change the life of your sons, which now is legacy. But before we can get there, it's a mindset. So the issue now that we're having, and what I'm trying to drive, and I know I'm rushing here because I ain't got but a few minutes, what I'm trying to drive is the mindset. There's a mindset that needs to be adapted into us. We need to bolt that on. We need to change some things. Even as we look at the text, Elisha told her, he says, when you go out and you borrow, he says, don't borrow a few. Because in other words, it's three ways to this thing. The first way is that the man should have left a good example. He should have left a way. The second way is that if he left that, then he left a good protocol to follow. But if he didn't, then what you have to do now is go borrow. The scripture here says, don't borrow a few, because if you're going to borrow a few, what we're looking for is legacy. So you don't borrow a little bit expecting a lot. You got to be out and go and get vessels. You got to go and you got to go get a whole lot of vessels. Why? Because what God is saying is that once you start to pour, because of what I have given you, once you start to, your eyes come open, you start to recognize that there's an oil that's on the inside of you. It's way more than one vessel, two vessels, 100 vessels, 1,000 vessels. In other words, what he's saying is, because of where you are today, and because I feel like preaching here, because of what I'm going to put in you, I got to get some things out of you. And so he tells her to shut the door. When you shut the door, what in essence what he was saying was, close the door on the past. Close the door on all those things now that got you into this quandary in the first place. Close the door on the ideologies. Close the doors on bad money practices and not being able to invest, going out and spiritualizing everything. You know, you want God to grant your needs through osmosis. I'm gonna go to bed, I'm gonna lay the Bible on my chest, and when I get up in the morning, everything is gonna be all right. Close the door on all of that. And he says, then come in. When you come in, he says, I want you to shut the door and shut the door on, because this is new now. Shut the door on you and your sons. Why? Because the first thing that I got to do is I got to empty you out. I got to empty you out so now you can set an example for you and your sons, because daddy didn't do it. And since he didn't do it, now I got to show you something new. And as I show you something new, I got to empty all the old stuff out of mama. So because now the two sons are watching mama, but mama isn't a person of anybody. Mama isn't a person of those now that are left and that they're looking for answers. And in order for you to give an answer, you got to be emptied out. Why? Because all the answers that you would have given in the past, those answers was contaminated. So the vessel now, the first vessel's got to be emptied out as you. So now when God said, when you shut the door and I'm going to give you some new stuff, that's the oil now. That's the oil that you recognize. And I want you to start pouring that. But don't pour it from your past. I want you to pour it from your future. And as you start to pour it, you're going to set it aside. Lord, I'm out of time. I'm going to have to get the rest of this message to y'all, because this right here is hot. And I'm telling you, this is paramount. It is something that the church, it is something that people, individuals, our houses, our families, we are missing today. It's a very practical message. I'm a spiritual person, but I'm concerned about the practical parts of how we navigate life. And it just don't make sense for the church to be so far behind, and for families in the church that make up the church to be so far behind. We can look at the world and we still have to go to the world to make up the difference, to satisfy us. We're supposed to be lenders and not borrowers. And I know here in the text, because I don't have time to deal with it, he says, borrow not a few. And so if you're going to borrow, in that, what it was suggesting was that this new thing that you're going to close the door on is that I'm going to give you a plan, because it don't make no sense for you to borrow if you ain't got no plan. See, so now if you're going to borrow, don't borrow 10,000, borrow 10 million, because it's a 10 million. And if you got a plan, and if God had already spoke a word over your life, what he's saying is, I'm going to anoint the oil that I've given you. And once I anoint the oil that I've given you, you're going to not only be able to pay back your debtors, but you're going to be able to pay yourself, pay your sons. You're going to be able to leave a legacy, and you're going to be able to leave an example. And that's where we are right now. We've got to be able to leave examples, so our families aren't hurting. Our churches are not hurting. So we ain't got to ante up. Look at all the African American people of color. It's because it's predominant in those pockets where when somebody dies, folks got to ante up. You don't see or hear that much when you start dealing with other races. You don't see that, but it's very pronounced in the African American church. Why? It's because we sitting here at the beginning of this text, Second Kings 2 Kings chapter 4, where this woman says that I've been left with but nothing. A lot of that but nothing is a mentality. A lot of that but nothing is a way that I'm managing my life. It's a lifestyle. And so, yeah, we look back and what is coming up to is it don't amount to much. There's not a whole lot of value. Why is there no value to it? Because the church ain't preaching it. Why is there no value? That those that are in leadership, they're not preaching it. Those that are leading the family, the husbands, they're dying. Death don't mean that a person have to literally die. Death could mean that a man walk away. Death could mean that a woman walk away. What it's saying that is I don't have an example. And because of that, I don't know. I don't know what to do. So this message now is to talk to those that feel like I'm in a tight spot. And I feel like the world is caving in on me and everybody has left me. Even the church. I don't have nothing. So I need help. And I'm here today in the person of Elisha to speak a word over your life, to tell you that all you need to do is start to look within. God gave everybody something. He gave the one talent, and what he had with that, he hoarded it. And when he hoarded that, he says, okay, when I come back to check on that, he says, I'm going to take that and I'm going to give it to somebody that's going to do something with it. So an issue is, or takeaway is, do something with what you got. God ain't giving you a whole lot because you ain't doing it with the one thing that you got. He says that if you take care of the small, if you rule over the little, I'll make you master over the much, or I'll give you a lot more. But let your faithfulness be over a little bit. Let me see you being faithful over that. Before you talking about, I want this and I want that. You can't do nothing with this and that. You don't even know how to rule over one. And you talking about you want a company, and you talking about you want this, and I need this kind of money and I need that kind of money. God's saying, well, what did you do with the $100? You had that and you went out and you mismanaged $100. And I could just go on and on and on. I want you to like, I want you to share, I want you to subscribe. I am on Facebook. There's a link in the description. I am on YouTube. If you go to YouTube, you can find this particular message in its entirety. I went through it kind of quick today because I ain't got but 30 minutes and I'm in the studio. So I'm all excited, plus I'm out of sorts. But you can go to my YouTube and you will see it in the playlist. I've got it in the catalog, and I've got that under let's work with that, because that's where we're at. We got to work. You got to work with what you got. Even though you don't think it's nothing, by the time God gets done with you, by the time the man of God gets done with you, you're going to see that what you had was way more than what you would ever need. It's the same way with Jesus, where he said, go out there and check, do an inventory. What you come back with, I got 2 fish and I got 5 loaves. That's enough. That's enough to feed 5 to 20,000, and I'm gonna have leftovers, and it's gonna be bags, fragments, groceries. Everybody gonna go and they're gonna be able to eat for weeks off of that. Why? Because you put it in my hand. Why? Because you changed your mind. Why? Because you believed in me. You allowed that word to get in you. And so now it becomes much. I bless you today. I want to thank Brother Larry for allowing me to come down in the studios. I'm excited. I'm fired up now. And so I want to continue this. I just kind of sprinkled this around a little bit, and pardon me if I kind of went all over the place, but my first time, so just give me a little leeway for that. But remember this, men and women of God, the worst is over in your life. The best is yet to come. Your quality of life is getting better and better and better. And because of that, you're going to live and not die, and see and declare the works and the will of the Lord. Until next time, this is Face to Face with Dr. Donnie Eatmon. I will see you on my next broadcast, be another Saturday or so from now. Y'all be blessed.